Hello, I'd like to welcome everyone to the Sunriver Homeowners Association Candidates Forum brought to you through the organization of Sunriver U. I'm Gwen Gamble and I will be the moderator today for the Candidates Forum. Each candidate will have a timed session to respond to questions, and please understand that I don't mean to be rude, that I might occasionally have to cut off a response. As participants viewing today, you are invited and encouraged to send any questions you would like answered to the host of today's meeting, and they will come to me and I will make sure that those questions get asked. Questions on the same topic tend to be grouped together, and I'll work to generalize them so we're not repeating ourselves on the same topic over and over again. So it's good to be an informed voter, and here we go. I'd like to introduce to you today our candidates, Linda Beard, Gerhard Bienen, and Larry Ishmael. And each of them will have 3 minutes to introduce themselves and give reasons for why they want to be on the board. Also today, David Williams, another candidate, is not able to be here. And I'll go ahead and read his bio, and then we'll get on with the questions. So, Linda, yes, it's yours.
Well, my name is Linda Beard, and Sunriver has been near and dear to my heart since I was 15 years old, when my father, who's a private pilot, came up here for the first time. And our first stay here was in the Wildflower condominiums that a friend of ours owned, and we continued to visit that particular unit every year. I have a strong passion for wanting to keep Sunriver's integrity as to what it was then and now. I believe the greatest asset that we have is nature that's here, and enjoying the beauty that we have with the Deschutes rivers, the mountains, the trees, the natural areas, and all of the supporting parks and recreation areas that are around. I'm also, prior to this, I lived in California. I'm sorry, I know a lot of people don't like to hear that, but I was a 6th generation from St. Helena, which is part of Napa Valley, California. And because of my love of here, I decided with my husband to leave the area and pull up all ties and make this our home. We've lived here for about 2.5 years now. I was very concerned with our first winters if I'd be able to survive it, and I love it. The snow, I don't think there's anything more beautiful than what we have right here in Sunriver. There's so many things that go on, especially with my history in Napa Valley. We were a high tourist destination area, and we referred to the tourists as our guests. And we tried to accommodate for their needs, plus our own, where we resided also. And it's very similar to how we are here. So I think one of the main areas of my concern is making sure guests are welcome, and that that we do as much education to them on the preservation of our area. I know all of us has experienced the rental houses almost next door, and what that leads to. And I think it's just simple communication with guests and perhaps the rental agencies to keep them all in line. I know from just talking to neighbors around here, there's also concern with how fast one drives within Sunriver, and I have some views about that too. But just keeping things safe and clean and functional so everybody can enjoy what's here. We're in a beautiful, beautiful area. Oh, and the one other fact too, when I was in Napa Valley, I was very involved with Firewise, and it was something that we took to all of our clients and to other community people on how to best protect your home and your property from wildfire.
Linda, I have to stop you there. Sorry.
Okay.
I'm sure in the questions you'll get a chance to continue on that line.
That's fine.
Gerhard, would you like to give us your bio and reasons for wanting to be on the board? Continue
Sure.
to be on the board.
All right. Yeah, my name is Gerhard Bienen. I've been on the SROA board for the past 3 years. And I've been the treasurer for SROA for the past 3 years. Many of you who follow the scene or read the scene might have read one of my columns, the Treasury Report, which is published in the monthly scene. I've been a Sunriver homeowner for the past 23 years and have lived full-time in Sunriver for the past 7 years. And actually a homeowner for the past 27 years, excuse me, and lived in the home for the past 7 years. Of course, one of the reasons why I've been on the board and why I ran before and why I'm running again is because I very much enjoy living in Sunriver and I want to keep Sunriver like it is as much as possible. That doesn't mean no changes, but certainly keep all of us safe. One of the things that concerns me very much, as I'm sure concerns a lot of Sunriver owners, is the fact that we live in a forest, and there have been a number of communities similar to ours that have had extreme problems with respect to wildfire. And so that certainly is one of my concerns and things that hopefully we'll be talking about. Another concern, I've been, not only have I been on the finance committee for the past 5 years or so, but I've also been heading up our telecommunications task force. And one of the things I also want to make sure we get done is improve the telecommunication services here in Sunriver. And we'll probably talk about that some more too. And then for the past 2 years, I've been on the SSD board. And the SSD, the Sunriver Service District, is responsible for police and fire. And as a member of that board, I have become more aware of the issues that are confronting our police and fire professionals, and also have worked very closely with other board members to secure the funding necessary to build a new public safety facility. And I very much appreciate for all the homeowners who are on the line today who voted for the levy in May, because we really are in desperate need of a new public safety facility for our police and fire professionals. What we have today is not adequate. And so then the other thing I really would like to see more of going forward is what I call Sunriver as a whole community. And that is not just SROA, but SROA in conjunction with the SSD, in conjunction with the resort, in conjunction with the village, because we all have a vested interest in the economic health and viability of Sunriver. And I think there are a lot of things that we can do working together to actually make Sunriver, keep Sunriver the wonderful place that it is today. You're on mute, Gwen. Still on mute. Our moderator, Gwen, you're on mute. I think she's working on it. There you go.
Whew. See a moderator sweat. Just put tape over my mouth.
Yeah.
All right. Sorry about that, folks. All right. Now we'll hear from Larry Ishmael.
Hi there. My name is Larry Ishmael. I'll just give you a little background of where I came from and how I came to be here in Sunriver. If you've got a half an hour. If you don't,
you get 3 minutes.
you got 3 minutes, then I'll have to shorten it. But we moved here we moved to the Northwest from Mequon, Wisconsin back in 1986. We moved to the Seattle area where I was the vice president of a Boeing subsidiary. And one of my first days on the job, talking with our CFO, he said, to understand Northwest culture, you need to know 2 things. And so he took me to the Costco store that was a couple blocks away and said, you got to get a membership here. And he said, the other thing you need to do is to go down to Sunriver on vacation. So that was already in the middle of the summer in '86. So the next year we booked a rental place here in Sunriver. And at that time, our kids were like 7, 5, and 1. And we had the most fantastic time riding bikes, going to school, really enjoying ourselves. And we liked it so much, we started coming back every year. And we continued to do that, even when we took some stints to live abroad in South Africa and Brazil. We would take vacations to come up here and go to Sunriver. So it's our happy place, the whole family's. And in 2009, we bought a pole house, which is right by the Shark. And so then we started coming down more frequently. And then when I retired from teaching, I was professor of economics at Northwest University. When I retired, we moved down here permanently, but we didn't want to live in the pole house. We bought another house to live in and then remodeled it because I've been watching too much of Chip and Joanna Gaines. And I'll never do that again. But at any rate, we got the house the way we wanted it. And we're just pleased, really pleased to be here. We love everything about Sunriver. As Linda said, the overall ambiance, the nature, the beauty that are all around us. The fact that people come here as multi-generational families. You see, we've got a bike path right behind our house, and you see, big long strings of family members from newborns to, 70 or 80 years old riding their bikes by. And that really warms my heart to see that kind of thing. So a couple of years ago, we gave our pole house to our three sons, who are now 43, 41, and 35. And they all have kids, and so they love coming here with their families. And two of our sons, one lives in Saudi Arabia and the other in Japan. And so this summer, they're all here at the same time. They get to spend the whole summer here.
Okay, and that's where I have to stop that 30-minute story.
Well, I've got 27 more minutes I can fill in.
Well, we will get to fill in some of that as you answer questions. Now, just so everybody knows, there's a fourth candidate, David Williams. He's not able to be here today. So I'm going to read his bio from the Sunriver scene, June this year. David Williams has a background serving for 14 years in the United States Marine Corps and the United States Navy, both as an enlisted service member and as an officer. His responsibilities included managing construction of strategic weapons facilities at Trident submarine base. He was employed by Weyerhaeuser Company for 23 years, serving in engineering and management positions. He has served for 3 years as a member of the Sunriver Nature Center and Observatory Board of Directors. Is that him? We have a picture that came up. Oh, okay.
That is, yeah. That's Michael raising his hand.
Oh, is it?
Yeah.
Okay, it's so Michael, if you type to Sunriver U your question, then we'll make sure it gets asked. But type in the chat feature at the bottom of your screen. There's a chat bubble and you click on that and type your question, and then I can ask it. All right, we're going to move on to the question answer series, which gives each candidate 2 minutes to respond to the question. And we're going to take turns on who's going first. So in this round, Gerhard, you're first. And the first question is, how do you plan to keep in touch with the owners and the Sunriver owners and encourage feedback?
All right. Well, thank you, Gwen. One of the things that I've, as I mentioned earlier, one of the things that I did as the treasurer was I started this column called the Treasurer's Report. And one of my intent in doing that was to make sure that people, Sunriver owners, understood, the financial intricacies of SROA. What are our sources of revenues? What are our sources of expenses? And as different financial issues came up, I would, write about those issues and help inform owners about, what the board and what SROA management was doing, basically with their money. And I think, I've gotten a lot of feedback from people that they found that very informative and very helpful. And so, if I'm reelected to the board, I will continue with some form of communication in the Sunriver scene. The other thing is that, my email address, as all board member email address, is readily available. I am in the Sunriver directory with both phone numbers and email contact information. And I have from time to time gotten email from owners asking questions about this, that, or the other thing. which I always respond to. So that certainly is another method of communication that I have used effectively in the past. I think the final thing, one of the things that I was hoping to do when I was first elected to the board was have some kind of forum where I could get together in a small group with some owners on a regular basis, not always the same owners, but some small group of owners. And then, unfortunately, what happened was COVID, and that really kind of nixed those plans. But that's something else that I will be looking at now that we're kind of coming
Great,
through.
Gerhard, that's 2 minutes.
All right, good
Looking
enough.
forward to those updates and changes. All right, Larry, how do you plan to keep in touch with the owners and encourage feedback?
In 2009, when we bought our pole house, the whole issue of the new shark came up. And at that time, Sunriver was at a real low in terms of the village being kind of run down and the South Pool not working and all that. And so we needed to create this shark. And one of the board members at the time, maybe the board chair, was Pat Hensley. She's a wonderful woman and loves Sunriver, cares about it deeply. And she decided to go out to the various communities around where the majority of homeowners are, like San Francisco, Portland, Seattle, and so on, for the board to go there and meet with owners and discuss the importance of the shark. And naturally, as a result of that, it passed overwhelmingly. And it was a big deal. And I think it's really important that we make those extra efforts to communicate, that we don't rely on people to come to Sunriver to find out what's going on, and that they hear more about what's going on than what's in the scene. So I would encourage the board to have these Zoom type meetings, maybe every quarter, with any homeowner, regardless of where you live. Because of my sons being international school teachers, we know that there are several international school teachers that have homes here and they live abroad. So even they can participate in what's going on and understand and make decisions with us. Because in essence, I am a servant leader. I like to gather information from the people that are the community, all aspects of the community, and take that in making decisions that the boards make.
Great, thank you. And Linda, how do you plan to keep in touch with the owners and encourage feedback?
I actually very much agree with absolutely everything Larry had to say, but I'd also like to add in that visiting our local service clubs, especially Rotary. I was a member of Rotary for 22 years in St. Helena, but you meet a lot of people through Rotary that I know are owners here. I attended many makeup meetings here in Sunriver over the years, but also getting out into the businesses that are around and getting to know the business owners in the village or even in the corporate park area. And then my other way, how I'm meeting a lot of owners is we happen to have 2 larger dogs, and we're at Fort Rock Park every day, usually 2 times a day, walking our dogs. And it's amazing the people that you meet there. So I think more or less being just open to people. I think if I'm elected, they're going to know by my picture or who I am. And I've already had people come up and ask me questions already just from the article in the Sun or in the paper that came out about me and the other candidates. So I think it's just kind of education and being open yourself to whatever, being accessible so that they feel free enough to come in and talk to you. I do like the idea that Larry had about maybe quarterly having an open forum, and like we're doing right now, where questions could be asked. And I think it's important that all board members be part of that. It would be excellent idea.
Okay, thank you, Linda. And now we're going to move on to the next question, and we'll be starting with Larry. Larry, what aspect of
The last one, by the way, I started the last one.
I thought Gerhard did.
Yeah, I did.
Gerhard did.
Oh, you did?
Okay, so, yeah, Larry,
My
you're up. That's okay.
I don't want to be up. Okay.
My paperclip system is still working. All right, Larry,
Okay.
you get to start. what aspect of Sunriver do you feel adds the most to our quality of life?
You know, if I were going to be super specific, I would say the trail system that we have here, the bike paths that we have here, because I try to ride my bike just about every day that weather permits, and whenever I pass people going the opposite direction, my son calls me the ambassador to Sunriver because I always smile and say hello, and those people are always smiling. You know, when you get on a bike and you haven't been on one in a long time, it just brings back your childhood or something. I don't know what it is, but it is wonderful to see how that happens and how you get all the multi-generational things going on because, you know, grandma and grandpa are taking out the grandkids and mom and dad are out jogging on it and whatnot. So that's really, to me, one of the biggest draws. The other one, and I got to blame Linda for this because she forced me to become a dog owner, and having dogs here is part of the fabric of who Sunriver is. Everybody seems to have a dog or bring a dog down here with them. So those are awesome things.
Okay, thank you. Linda, what aspect of Sunriver do you feel adds the most to our quality of life?
Well, number one, in the morning when I look out in the sky, I never close our bedroom drapes because we face the forest. But number one is looking at the clear sky. It's something that unfortunately we lost in California, and I appreciate it so much here. So there's the sky, there's the river, and there are all those bike paths, which I agree with Larry. And I rarely get on my bike anymore because we've got our two dogs, and if they see us going somewhere, they want to go too. And somehow I almost feel like an ambassador at the park when we are there, even on other pathways walking. So many people have left their dogs home, and I'm like, oh, you can't do that. And they all want to hug our dogs. Our dogs are super friendly. And so that's being a good ambassador to our guests that are here too. But it's an asset that's here. It's something that other resort type areas don't encourage. And we have it here. It's so special. And I don't know, everything about Sunriver. I mean, it's my happy place, period. And it has been since I was 15 years old. And I think people that come here feel the same way. So we have to preserve what we've got here because that's why people come here.
Okay, well, thank you. And Gerhard, what aspect of Sunriver do you feel adds the most to our quality of life?
Well, I have to agree with both Larry and Linda that, you know, the pathway system is certainly a very unique feature of Sunriver. There are very few other types of communities that have the extensiveness of the pathways that we have. And certainly I enjoy bicycling and walking on those pathways as almost everybody does. I think another thing that I really enjoy about Sunriver, and it's unfortunate, but again, it's one of those things that we haven't had a lot of lately, and that's the community activities. And so, you know, we have the potlucks that are just starting up again. We have the happy hours, and we have turf tunes and things like that, where you really can get together with neighbors and friends and, you know, meet new people and just have an enjoyable encounter with other individuals here in Sunriver. Certainly, you know, one of the things that I'm sure anybody who's a permanent resident certainly finds very enjoyable is the fact that, you know, you live in a neighborhood, you get to know your neighbors, even if they're not even full-time residents, you know, if they're part-time residents or whatever, you get to know those people. And it's just a very friendly and enjoyable environment. So that's another thing I have. Another thing, this is one that, you know, a neighbor of mine mentioned to me once, and I have to agree with him, is solitude. And that is that, you know, in general, Sunriver is a very peaceful and quiet place. Now, I mean, there are more people here in the summertime, but, you know, the bulk of the year, it's a very peaceful and quiet place. And even in the summertime, you know, I find that, you know, it's nice to see the kids on the pathway. It's nice to see the people at the pools and stuff like that. But I can still sit on my deck in the back, and it's a very quiet and enjoyable place.
Great.
And then
That's 2 minutes.
okay, good enough.
Okay, we're going to ask the next question, starting with Linda. And we'd like to know if you are for or against the fiber optics to the home and why.
I'm very much for it. My husband still works in our own insurance agency out of the house. We have clients in California and Oregon. It would definitely make our jobs easier. I'm on the computer quite a bit too and losing the connect. I mean, we all heard all the jokes about Ben broadband. With what we have right now, everything seems to buffer all the time. And when we have guests in our community, it's even worse. So I'm very, very much for the fiber optics. My concern is the cost that may be coming down to the homeowner, and that's something to really evaluate when we have hard numbers to look at.
Okay, and let's move on to Gerhard. Are you for or against the fiber optics to the
Well,
home?
I am definitely for it. As I mentioned earlier, I am actually heading up the telecommunications task force, where we are looking at the various different options of how to improve the telecommunications in Sunriver. And I've been on the task force for over 2 years now. We've looked at a lot of different solutions, a lot of different approaches to getting that. And I think we have come up with a methodology for making sure that we actually do get fiber to the home here in Sunriver. And not only do we get it to the home here in Sunriver, but we get it to the home probably in the next 3 years. Some people will be connected earlier than that, but we should have the bulk of the homes connected in the next 3 years. There's actually going to be, we've had several discussions at the recent board meetings about this, and we just recently at the last week's board meeting, we made a decision to put to the vote of the owners a proposal where we would enter into an agreement with Ben Broadband or TDS in what's called the bulk service agreement. And I probably don't have time to go through all the details of that, but basically what that amounts to is that we as a community say we're all going to sign up for internet service. We get a very good service at a very low price. And so there will be an article in the July scene that I wrote that'll be coming out in a couple of weeks or in a week and a half or so, where you can read about what the bulk service agreement is and what the parameters of it are. But I am very much in favor of that.
Great, thank you. And Larry, are you for or against the fiber optics to the home and why?
Actually, I think they're asking the wrong question here. The question is who's going to provide the fiber optics, because everybody wants fiber optic cable to their home. All the residents that live here, plus when we get visitors like my son that lives in the Issaquah, Washington area, when they come down, his wife still works while she's here and needs that high-speed internet. So we all want that. My career started in the summers in college installing cable TV. And I went on to work for the Ditch Witch Company, which makes these directional drills that install the cable around Sunriver, or the conduit. And then I was involved in the privatization of the telephone company of Ecuador, where we put in fiber cable. All their trunk lines have been maxed out. So I'm very familiar with it. The question is whether Sunriver owns the conduit in which the fiber optics is placed, or whether Ben Broadband owns it. And that's still up for debate. But no question, I'm for fiber optic.
Okay, well, thank you. All right, the next question is going to start with Gerhard. How would you balance the diverse needs of residents and non-residents? And this is asked by somebody who feels non-residents are given less of a voice.
Yeah, one of the things is I was a non-resident for 20 some years. In other words, I owned a home here in Sunriver, but only used it as a personal vacation home. And so I'm very aware of what, it's like being a non-resident. So certainly I keep that in mind anytime we have a a discussion or an issue that we're looking at the board. As an example, I mentioned there's an article coming out in the Sunriver Scene in July about this bulk service agreement. And in the article, I point out that, for people like myself, who's a resident, there's a lot of advantages. But for people who are not a full-time resident, they may see it totally differently. And so I've always kept that in mind. I think the easiest way for those of us on the board to really make sure that we listen to what non-residents would like to see happen is through things like the owners forum and through emails to the board. And we have gotten those kind of things. And I think that's extremely helpful for the board when we do get those kind of that kind of feedback from non-residents, because it is important that we hear from all the constituents. And one thing I just want to make sure everybody's aware is that all the board meetings are available via Zoom now. And so independent of where you live or where you're at that particular point in time, you can always dial in to the board meeting, and you can actually participate via the owners forum at each of the meetings. So that's probably about the best I can say at this time.
Great, thank you. Okay, Larry, how would you balance the diverse needs of residents and non-residents?
Well, again, as I stated, I can't maybe state it enough. I'm a servant leader, which means that I like to take input from all the interested parties. And so it's not just the owners that live here. I mean, of the 20,000 residents that we have during the summer or more, only 2,000 or so of those live here year round. And most of us are senior citizens. Yesterday I turned 70, so I'm definitely a senior citizen. And we tend to start looking at Sunriver as a place where we live as our neighborhood, as opposed to looking at it from the perspective of the greater neighborhood and as a resort that draws people from all around the world. We need to look at our rules and regulations to take into consideration that things are changing out there. Things that attract people to places like Sunriver are constantly changing. Some of the issues that will come up eventually will be the issue of e-bikes and skateboards and motorized skateboards and those kinds of things. And that's off-putting to the younger generation. And I've got 3 generations of Ishmaels here that enjoy Sunriver. And you have to consider the needs of the youngest generation, because they're going to be the oldest generation someday if we continue on. So it's not just owners that live abroad, but it's also the renters. We need to really make a point of understanding what it is that how the world is changing and how we need to adapt to it.
Okay, thank you. And Linda, how would you balance the diverse needs of residents and non-residents?
I think the needs are pretty much equal. People that live here full time, have different wants and needs, and the guests that come here have those same needs. Doesn't matter if you're a teenager or in your 20s, or if you're 70, 80, or 90, people have the same needs. So I think keeping the open forum for our board meetings, if people have concerns, to bring it up, to deal with items as they arise, I think that's the right thing to do. I know Larry just mentioned the e-bike thing, and since I'm an avid walker with dogs, I'm not a fan of the motorized vehicles or items on the bike paths at all, especially the quiet ones, where all of a sudden someone's coming up behind you at 30 miles an hour or more. So I don't think I think that's a safety issue more than anything else, and that's something the board's going to need to address down the road. I don't believe that'll be a true deterrent to young people, because they still have other things that they can do here. But I think our needs are the same. I don't think there's a differentiation there whatsoever.
Okay. Thank you very much. All right, I just want to mention 2 things, because these questions have come in and they're more general questions. So the first one is that I'd like to remind everybody that we have 3 board positions available this year, There are 9 members on the board. They serve a 3-year term. So every year we vote 3 new people in. And that's the pattern that happens with the board. So we have 3 positions this year and they serve for 3 years. And you get to vote for 3. Yeah, there'll be 4 on the ballot and you get to vote for 3 positions. Also, just a reminder, Sunriver U, who is hosting today's candidates forum, we also host quarterly board forums. And so if you didn't know that before now, check out Sunriver U, and we do have quarterly forums where we address specific topics that the board is addressing. All right, back to questions from our folks. Oh, unmute me, please. Gerhardt's muted. Okay, it's being taken care of. All right, the next question, Larry will be our first responder. And the question is, are you a resident full-time or part-time? And how long are you here? How many months a year are you here in Sunriver?
Well, I am a full-time resident and I am here over 11 months a year. You know, I actually take a vacation to other places once in a while, but not very often because it's so comfortable right here. So yeah, full-time resident.
Okay, and let's ask Linda, what's your resident status in Sunriver?
Full-time resident. I'm kind of balking right now. One of my twin daughters is getting married in October and we have to fly to Illinois. And I'm like, I don't want to leave Sunriver, but, but no, we live here full-time.
Okay, and Gerhard?
Yeah, I live here full-time. I actually grew up in Wisconsin, and so it may sound a little bit strange, but I do tend to leave in the winter time for a while if I can. So I like to break up the winter, and you know, I enjoy winter, but I like to take it in smaller chunks than what we actually get here. So I'm probably here, you know, in excess of 10 months out of the year. But even when I'm away, you know, I've been on the board for the last 3 years, and I've always participated in the board meetings remotely, and so it's quite easy to do, even if you're not here in Sunriver. And then also, as I mentioned earlier, I was a non-resident owner for close to 20 years, and so you know, I very much understand what it's like when you're not here permanently, and what it's like when you are here permanently.
Okay, thank you very much. All right, we have a lengthy question here, so bear with me as I read a little bit of background on this one. Private property is respected in most communities and maybe not always so much in Sunriver because we have rules that prohibit signage and fencing and kind of hints to visitors that property is private. The SROA suggests that owners should use landscaping to deter trespassers, and this can come at an expense to owners. Do you have any other additional ideas that would allow owners to notify guests that their property is private and tourists should not be trespassing on private property? And we'll start with Linda.
Get a big dog. We have a dog that's half golden retriever, half Great Pyrenees, weighs 104 pounds, likes to scare people with his tail wagging and wanting to give everybody kisses. I was joking though. I don't know, we've had people come up, we have a circular drive in front of our home and we get people that are guests here and kids will be riding their bike up in our driveway. I might be out front gardening or something or with the dogs. And I just, you know, I'm nice about it, but I let them know it's our home. And they usually leave. It just takes a kind word. I've never seen a problem. If there is a problem, I suppose you could always call the Sunriver Police about something, but I've never seen any disrespect in all the time that I've been here. So I don't know. I mean, maybe something happened I don't know about.
Right?
Yeah.
Okay. Gerhard, do I need to read the whole question again?
No, that's okay. I think, you know, so one of the things that, you know, and it is difficult at times because in Sunriver, we have a lot of common property and we have private property. And there aren't real clear distinctions between where does the private property start and the common property end, so to speak. And if anybody has tried to do a modification on their house, you know that one of the things that you have to do is you have to go find your survey stakes, and that's a very, very challenging task to do. So I understand the issue, and we have had people write to the board on a couple of occasions talking about, people who are trespassing across their property. I tend to agree with Linda that I think the easiest and simplest short-term solution is to really, just go out there and inform people and says, this is my private property, and I would appreciate if you would not trespass on it. And I my guess is that 80–90% of the people who, once you inform them, will abide by your desires and stay off your property. I think in those cases where you have people who are, habitually violating your property, certainly that is one of the reasons we have the Sunriver Police, and we pay for the Sunriver Police. So you certainly are within your rights to call them and ask them to intervene on your behalf. And then beyond that, I think it really, those are probably the boundaries of the things that I would recommend. I would not like to see, as an example, for everybody to put up a fence around their property. I don't think that would serve us well here in Sunriver in terms of the atmosphere and the environment that we live in. And I know that in some cases, people are actually using firewood as kind of creating fence structures.
Okay,
to,
Gerhard, I have to stop you there. That's your
all right, good enough.
Clearly, you know about this problem, though.
I do.
All right, Larry.
Yeah, I've not personally experienced it. We're not all that touchy-feely about our yard. I mean, it's not like you're living in a residential neighborhood. We get deer crossing through the yard every once in a while, and other types of animals, and so it's really no big deal. The only concern I have is if people with their dogs are defecating on our lot that I have to clean up. But not really had any problem with people trespassing. We've had very few cases of people that are squatters trying to find empty homes. That I know of, one or two maybe, but the Sunriver Police have been great about evicting them and that kind of thing. So, and I agree with Gerhard. I really think it would be a shame to have people fence their yards in, because that's one of the beauty of the wide open spaces we have here. And that's when, once they do that, people start getting real particular about what's theirs, as opposed to, just being a little more laissez-faire about it.
Okay, thank you. We're going to go back to fiber optics. And it's a very specific question about the difference, what your opinion is of the owner-owned fiber to home versus a co-op owned. And we're starting with Gerhard on that. And Gerhard, I'm going to remind you 2 minutes.
All right. I'll try to be fast. So again, I think we spent over 3 years on the telecommunication task force. I've been involved for the last 2 years. We've looked at the option of how do we get an owner supported fiber to the home network. And my personal preference would be that if we could do that, that'd be wonderful. The challenge is that it costs $20 million, and $20 million translates into $5,000 per owner or $35 per month per owner for 15 years, however you want to pay for it. We've done a number of surveys, and on those surveys, it's come back clear that owners will not support that level of investment to build a fiber to the home system. So we have to find an alternative. The best alternative that I believe we have is working with Ben Broadband. I know some people have had trouble with Ben Broadband. I believe a lot of the trouble that people have had with Ben Broadband is related to the age of their network and the fact that it's a coaxial network with a lot of buried connectors. And so once you install fiber, that will improve. But Ben Broadband's willing to put in the fiber to the home network at no charge to Sunriver owners. And, I think, and at the same time, offering us an internet service at a very attractive price. So I think those things lead me to believe that that's the best solution for us going forward.
Okay. Wow. You did that in 1 minute and 30 seconds. Gold star for you. Okay. All right, Larry, what is your opinion of an owner-owned fiber to home or the co-op owned option?
So I'm not really sure I understand what the co-op owned option would be.
It
Um,
means that within corporate owned, I'm sorry. Oh, I read that wrong. It's corporate owned. Like,
There you go.
there we go.
Okay, so, like I said in the beginning, when we talked about this at first, I am definitely in favor of fiber optic. I actually tried to get on this telecommunications committee, but apparently I wasn't accepted. So, but it is my expertise. And my concern would be that, for example, I use the max amount of everything that Ben Broadband offers. And my rates went up from like $205 a month to $260 a month just last month. And they have other options that I changed to that lowered the price some, but it's very expensive to have a corporate monopoly in this area. There are a couple of things that we need to consider. One is that if you have fiber optic internet and you're paying an internet price, then you can stream whatever service you want, Hulu, Netflix, Paramount Plus, Disney Plus, all those other things you can buy individually rather than taking the television package that Ben Broadband offers. But if you get back to being Sunriver owned, there is a way to cut significantly the price. The $20 million that Gerhardt's referring to is basically going in with these directional drills and putting in all new conduit, which is plastic pipe that you run the fiber optics inside of. So if we owned the the plastic pipe, the conduit, instead of Ben Broadband, then I don't care who pulls their fiber through there. We could have 2 or 3 or 4 different fiber optic options if we wanted. So,
Okay, that's your 2 minutes. Sorry.
Okay.
Sorry.
That's all right.
Hard to stop people when you have good thoughts going. All right. Linda, do you have an opinion on owner-owned fiber to home versus corporate owned?
Well, I don't really have an opinion either way. I think the opinion comes down to what's going to be the most cost effective for those of us that are here. And if Ben Broadband offers the better package for it, maybe we bite the bullet and hope that they do the right thing. Or $35 a month increase in our dues to help pay for this, that might in the long run end up being better for all of us too, by not having the big fee to pay to Ben Broadband. I know we're paying about $230 a month now to Ben Broadband. And I understand it's going to be going up very soon. So I don't know, it's whichever bottom line is going to be the most cost effective for each member here.
Okay, thank you very much, Linda. Larry, you get to start this next round of questions or answers. The question is, what challenges do you feel are facing our community in the upcoming, like, let's say 3 to 5 years?
Well, I think that the biggest concern about living in Sunriver or owning a property in Sunriver is the fire concern. And, the founders of Sunriver were very ecologically sound in their original development of Sunriver and way ahead of their time. And so the only problem we've had is with the influx of people and people doing things their own ways and things, we have created a little more of a fire hazard than was originally intended. And we have seen that the forestry department works well by doing these controlled burns around Sunriver, and that helps immensely. But these wildfires are just crazy everywhere, and we saw some huge community, well, not large size, but communities being completely wiped out between here and Salem, or here in Eugene. And so we really have to be cognizant of that. And I think our insurance rates are going up constantly as a result of that. So wildfire would be my answer.
All right, thank you. Linda, what other challenges are facing our community, or what challenges do you see facing our community?
Well, my number one also, because I am a licensed insurance broker and agent, besides a dietitian, I know how difficult it is personally to obtain homeowners insurance because of fire. And also with my background working with Firewise, it's very much there. I mean, if I had my choice, every lodgepole pine would be taken out, since it burns 10 times faster than a ponderosa. There's things within Sunriver as simple as managing our trees better that I believe would help a lot. So that also is my absolute number one concern, especially since our home backs up to BLM too. So it's a big concern. We keep our space neat and tidy how we're supposed to. Everything's sprinkled well, but fire's probably my scariest thing that I have to think about for here.
Okay, thank you. And Gerhard?
Yeah,
what
I
other
have to.
challenges?
Yeah, I have to agree with Linda and Larry. I think, fire is certainly the number one challenge that I think we have to deal with. Some of our SROA actually invests on the order of $200,000 to $300,000 per year in keeping our common areas, at a lower fire hazard. Let me put it that way. I wouldn't say free from fire, but at a lower fire hazard. And a lot of homeowners actually invest significantly in keeping the area around their home at a lower fire hazard too. And those efforts are extremely appreciated. We do have some homes where people are not putting in the requisite amount of effort. And this was a discussion that we had at the board meeting this last month. And I've been pushing SROA management pretty hard on that says that we really need to get people in compliance much sooner rather than later, because we really need everybody contributing to this. This is a community safety issue, and we have to have everybody on board with doing everything that we possibly can. I think one of the other good things about what SROA does is they work very closely with the Forest Service and the Oregon Department of Natural Resources and organizations like that, and have been very effective in getting fire reduction outside the fence of Sunriver, so to speak. And that is, you've seen these prescribed burns that have happened on both the north side and the south side, and we need to continue to do that. I think a couple other things that are challenges coming forward is really the cost structure for SROA. We have had a couple of years now where we've had to increase the maintenance fees by 6%. And you don't have to read too many newspaper articles to know that inflation is increasing at a rate faster than 6%. So we really need to sit back and figure out and says, how are we going to actually fund the activities of SROA, which are very important, but not raising homeowners fees by 6%.
Okay,
And,
that's 2 minutes.
All right, thank you.
Okay, thank you. Going along with all that interest in the fire concern, what are your views on climate change, and can we work to establish a sustainable and climate-friendly community? And Linda, you get to answer that first.
It's a lot.
It is a lot. I don't write the questions.
Yeah, I know. And I probably know the type of person that did, but frankly, I don't believe in climate change. I believe it's just an act of God, and it's different changes that happen to our earth if you go back in history. Yes, there is some involvement with the pollutants that we put in the air, but I don't believe it's enough. There are two thought processes to this issue, and I'm not one with the big climate change badge on me, period.
Okay, Gerhard, what are your views on climate change, and can we work to establish a sustainable and climate-friendly community?
Yeah, I definitely believe in climate change. Getting back to my background, I should have mentioned this earlier, but my background is I have a doctorate in chemistry, so I have a very strong physical science background. I very much understand, and my graduate research was in the area of spectroscopy, which is really what climate change is really all about, and that is the absorption of light by residual gases such as CO2 in our atmosphere and methane. So I understand the chemistry and the science about this very clearly, and I very much believe in it. I do believe that we can coexist with the changing climate, but we have to adapt. And that's probably the biggest thing that we have to really work on. And as we were mentioning earlier, when we talked about fire safety, that's one of the ways in which we have to adapt. Things that were, quote unquote, not a big deal in Sunriver 5, 10, 20 years ago are becoming a big deal. And so we need to adapt and really do all those things that are necessary to keep fire at bay as best as we possibly can. Just one example, approximately, I think 10 or 15 years ago, SROA banned any homes of putting in, what do they call it? A roof that's got a shake roof, excuse me. And so we're now down to just a few structures that when they actually get re-roofed, the shake roof will be removed. Shake roofs are extremely dangerous in a fire-prone area. And so we have to start adapting and creating rules like that that are going to allow us to, to live in this environment where fire risk is going to be much higher.
Okay, thank you. And Larry, what are your views on climate change, and can we work to establish a sustainable, climate-friendly community?
A couple of things. I did my PhD work at the University of Stellenbosch in South Africa, and my dissertation was on the issue of basically vehicle pollution and how to clean it up in big cities like Cape Town. And prior to that, I had actually been one of the architects of the largest clean air project in the world in Sao Paulo, Brazil, a town of 22 million, where you could literally taste the air on days of air inversion that kept the pollutants down close to the ground. It was horrific and people were sick. I have asthma. I had a hard time living there. And so I'm a proponent of environmentalism as far as pollution is concerned that's harmful to humans, anthropological problems. And I'm not sure that I really believe in this concept, the political concept of climate change, because it's become politicized and has developed. For example, people don't realize this, but forest fires create more pollutants in the air than all the vehicles in the world through their tailpipes. So there are a lot of these inconsistencies that happen. And so keeping away from the political spectrum, we want to have as clean of environment, a clean air, clean water, that kind of thing. But when we start talking about climate change as a global thing, I'm just not buying into it. I find it to be a political problem.
Okay. On to a lighter topic. What have you done to prepare yourself for being a board member? And we'll start with Gerhard, our incumbent.
Well, I guess probably the best way for me to answer that is that, is what I have been doing for the past 3 years. And, for a couple different things. One is that because I've been on the finance committee for, I think, 5 or 6 years now, I completely understand SROA finances, the inputs, the outputs, and all that kind of thing. So that I'm very familiar with. I think the other aspect of it is that because I've been on a board for the last 3 years, And also as part of being on the finance committee, I understand SROA management. You know, I probably have conversations with James Lewis, our general manager, on a weekly basis. I have conversations with all the other people on his staff on a regular basis. And so I really understand all aspects of what happens in SROA. And then, of course, I have the advantage of having been on the board for the last 3 years and, you know, having to deal with all the issues that have been brought before the board, either by owners or through other mechanisms. So I have that kind of experience, so to speak. But it also gets down to preparing and, you know, really taking the time to understand the issues, asking questions, talking to various different people in the community, finding out different viewpoints, and really trying to make sure that when things come to the board, we're not looking at it very myopically, but we're seeing it from a much broader perspective.
Okay, thank you. And Larry, what have you done to prepare to be a board member?
I think most of it is just life experience. The various careers I've had, the various boards I've sat on. I've sat on a number of boards, from industry associations to school boards to a hospital in the Seattle area. And so really understanding what it is in terms of how a board operates. We don't give specific instructions to the staff there, but rather we develop policies that they're supposed to follow. So it's called board governance. And I think that's a really important thing. Too many times people get on the board and they want to direct this and direct that, and kind of take over the job of the staff. They're supposed to be implementing it. So that being involved in that and working with consultants in that area and the various boards I've been on have been a big asset. But being on a board in general is a pretty common thing, and I've been able to carry it across industries and across perspectives from the public to the private sector. And I must say, Sunriver's board is more like a city council than any other homeowners association that I can think of, because we provide so much more service than the average homeowner association. We've lived in 6 homeowners associations. My wife was president of 2 of them. And I wasn't able to participate as much, but now that I'm retired, I am raring to go.
Great, thank you. And Linda, what have you done to prepare to be a board member?
I think it's called life experiences and working two completely opposite careers. And then especially my involvement with Rotary International and Youth Exchange, also on 2 different hospital boards. I've had many experiences also, but having lived here now for 2.5 years, it's definitely shown me that I would really like to become more involved and help with those decision-making ideas and plans that need to be done. And I think I'm qualified to do that. Of course, the other homeowners will have to decide also. But I mean, I just attended a board meeting last weekend. I've been to the annual board meetings held at the Shark since we've lived here, and it's a start, and learn something new every time I attend. So I think being a willing participant actually helps a lot too.
Okay. I think I lost my place here a minute, just a minute. Gerhard, you answered that question first, correctly?
Correct.
Okay.
Yeah.
So Larry, you're next. So Larry,
One, please.
okay. Please provide us with your perspective on fiduciary, is it on or your perspective on fiduciary role and responsibility of board members?
Well, yeah, all boards are supposed to, board members are supposed to have a fiduciary responsibility. I haven't actually checked into, I'd have to ask Gerhard if the Sunriver Board offers insurance for that or not. But at any rate, yeah, it's a pretty simple answer.
Okay, so Linda?
Yes. Actually, being a licensed insurance agent and broker, I've written many fiduciary type policies for organizations. So I'm hoping the Sunriver Board has one in place. But I would very much like to assist them in obtaining one. It's very important. But we are representing, other people's monies. I mean, all of us that live here that participate, it's not just my personal funds, of course, they're in there too, but it's everybody's. And there's a high fiduciary involvement. So,
Okay, thank you. And Gerhard, I know you know the answer to this.
So yeah, we do have, what's the equivalent of DBO insurance, Larry? So we're protected there.
Good.
But so from a fiduciary, and I agree with Linda too. I mean, we are dealing with other people's money, and you always have to be extremely careful when you're dealing with other people's money. And so SROA is about an $11 million a year operation. So, pretty much about half of that is money that we take from owners directly through their maintenance fee, and the other half comes from activity fees such as the RPP program or Shark Gate fees or the MPP program and other sources of funds, fines and things like that. So we have to be very careful. And not only do we have to be careful with how that money is spent, but we also have to be careful to make sure that as we put in place new amenities, such as, the new owners pool or several years ago, Shark, or, different, now we're going to be putting restrooms in at Mary McCollum, that we have the financial bandwidth to maintain those facilities long-term. And so that's another thing that we have to look at very carefully. We can't just only support current day operations, but we also have to have the financial bandwidth so that we can maintain the facilities we have going forward. So both of those are very strong aspects. We have on the good news side, we have a very good controller, Joe Healy in the SROA. He has a very good team that runs our finances. And so we're very fortunate that we just had an audit completed a couple months ago. We had the audit report at our board meeting last week, and we had a completely clean audit. And so that's one of the things that makes it a lot easier in Sunriver, is that we don't have to worry about what is happening in our finance and accounting department. Okay.
I knew you knew that.
Yeah.
All right. The next question is about your commitment to the 3-year term. We've recently lost some board members due to the great housing prices in Sunriver, and they have sold and moved during their 3-year term, and those positions become difficult to fill. What is your commitment to the 3-year term? Linda, start with you.
This is really, it's kind of funny, but not. I should probably have my husband answer that, because when we moved in our home, I told him the only way you're getting me out is in a plastic bag. I'm planning on living here till the day I die. I'm a lifer.
Okay.
Well, if somebody wants to make an offer on my house, I'm fully committed to the 3 years. I've been on the board for the last 3 years. I've been on the finance committee for 5 or 6 years. And I very much enjoy living in Sunriver. I plan on living here much longer than the next 3 years, but I certainly am committed to living here for the next 3 years.
Thank you. And Larry?
Yeah, I don't really have a choice. I'm going to be here forever because my wife has made it very clear that she's not moving. So yeah, we'll be around at 3 years and probably a lot more.
All righty. Okay, we're going to move on to a touchy topic here. It's all about the renters and the rules. And thanks to some of the work the board has done recently, the renters now sign a contract that says they understand all the rules. However, typically only one of the renters signs the contract, and all the others who join in to pay to share the house do so without knowing all the rules and regulations. Do you have any ideas on effectively communicating rules and regulations to all renters that are in a home when they share a dwelling? And we'll start with Gerhard.
All right, so I was on the Rules Enforcement Task Force that was actually came up with this process. And so there's a lot of different aspects to this. So one thing is working closely with the rental agencies. And the rental agencies count for about 60% of the rentals in Sunriver. And we have, in a lot of thanks to Mr. Lewis, James Lewis, our general manager, he headed up this task force, and we have a good communication process now for those rental agencies that rent out. And as you mentioned, Gwen, there's now a contract form that is signed that people will have to sign. Another thing that I did as part of that rental rules and regulations is I developed a rental registry. And we've gotten pretty good participation in this, but we need broader participation. And this was another topic that we discussed at the board meeting last week. And I have been pushing very hard that we really need to get all owners in Sunriver to provide us with direct contact information. And the reason being is because some owners rent out their homes through VRBO or Airbnb and stuff like that. And things occur at their house that they're totally unaware of. And so we really need to be able to get in contact with them and says, hey, this is what's happening at your home. We need you to take care of it because you're the person who is actually renting out that home. And if you don't take care of it, we've got a mechanism for dealing with that, where people where rules are violated consistently at a home. We have a mechanism for going into a fine or fining that homeowner for that. So that's another thing that we need to do to really make sure. I think the other thing that has been done, and it's been done quite well, is the work of the communications department and Susan Berger. And you've seen these full page ads in the scene. They go out, there are things that go to each of the rental agencies that point out what the rules and regulations are. The rules and regulations are on the free maps that people pick up at the kiosks throughout Sunriver. So there is a lot of communication that's taking place. And then, of course, the other thing that we do is we have the bike patrols that SROA supports in the summertime. All right.
Sorry.
Yep.
All right, Larry, to go back to the heart of the question, it's how can the SROA effectively communicate rules and regulations to all renters, not just the one who signed the agreement?
Yeah, that's, I have to say, clearly Garrett knows more about it than most of us do, if not all of us. And so I agree with all of his recommendations and the fact that I'm seeing it more and more on like the maps on the new Sunriver directory has it in the front page. The scene has it. I'm not sure, but I think I've seen it on the Sunriver channel on television that has the activities that go on and that kind of thing. So I'm not really sure what else we can do, but I do agree that VRBO and those kinds of services are really hard to hold to task. So the owners do have to be responsible for their actions.
Okay, thank you very much. And Linda, what more can we do to communicate rules and regulations to renters?
Frankly, I would recommend anybody of legal age sign those contracts. Everyone that's going to be in that house of legal age needs to sign that contract that they've read our rules and regulations. There are so many people that do traffic violations around here or ride their bicycles down the actual roads instead of the bike paths. Or I had someone 2 days ago that was pulled over on the inside of a circle on Circle 11 and then called a little girl on a bicycle over across the road, just talking to her in the middle of the circle. It's lack of understanding. So maybe a way is that everybody in signing that contract then is responsible for their actions and the actions of their children that are here too. Maybe they'll take it more seriously. That might be one suggestion. I don't know if I'm out in left field or not, just an idea. And the people that do their own rental, maybe some sterner language needs to be made to them, that those people need to educate their tenants on our rules and regulations here within Sunriver. Maybe they need to have an additional contract or something that needs to be signed. And if violated, this is what's going to happen. Otherwise, I don't know. We don't have enough police to monitor enough. We don't have enough bicycle police in the summertime to take care of everybody. I don't know what else would work. And I know we've all seen everybody doing something that's not the way it should be done.
Yes, thank you, Linda. Larry, you get to answer the next question first. The question is, how do you feel about personal religious beliefs and the SROA board position and keeping them separate?
Well, I'm a member of Sunriver, the Community Bible Church of Sunriver, active on their men's ministry team. I'm not sure how you would get a crossover between the churches in the area and Sunriver Board. I'm not sure how that would be, would ever come to be an issue.
Okay. Linda?
I'm also a member of the Community Bible Church and participate in women's studies. And the only crossover I could see is if the Sunriver Board started having meetings on Sunday mornings, because my first choice would be to attend church. And on Tuesday mornings when we have our women's Bible study, I would be hard pressed to kind of give that up, although they do have a makeup one on Wednesday nights. But I don't see any difference other than I rule my life in a Christian manner.
Okay, and Gerhard?
That's a problem.
Yeah, it's kind of an interesting question. I don't recall over the last 3 years an issue like this coming up. So I don't believe it is it is a significant issue at this point in time. All my experiences with the board, whether I've been on the board or I've been an observer of the board, I have not seen, I mean, the board has always acted in what I would consider a secular way. And so I have not seen any time in my past experience where board members have, not looked at an issue from a secular perspective. And so I don't think it's an issue in Sunriver right now. And I hope it doesn't become an issue because I believe that, the separation of, quote unquote, the separation of church and state is a very strong tenet of the American form of government. And I think even at the homeowners association level, we really need to heed to that same principle.
Okay, thank you very much. And at this time, do we have other questions coming in? We do have a concern about the boat launch and the eroding of the riverbank. It's particularly, it kind of all amounts to the Cardinal Landing issue. So many people are pulling out their boats at Cardinal Landing and causing erosion, and it's something the board has had to address in the past. Do you have any other solutions that can help encourage boaters to use the provided boat pullouts? And we'll start with Linda.
Well, my husband and I are active kayakers, and we put in at the owner's marina and we pull out at the proper pullout, which is just very close to where we live, actually. I have seen people pull out in other places, and you just want to kind of share with them that's not the correct place. I know many people that put in at the bridge want to pull out at Mary McCollum Park instead of going down to the marina. And when we're there with our dog swimming, we usually nicely let them know that this is not the proper place to do that. So I don't know if more signage would help, more ambassadors, owners being around to just say maybe this isn't the proper place. The correct pullout is down another 5 minutes. I don't know. I haven't seen a lot of it, but I have seen some.
Okay, thank you. Gerhard. Continuing issue of Cardinal Landing.
Yeah, this is an issue, is probably last summer or last spring was a pretty big issue. And a couple things were done by the board and the SROA management. One is that General Manager James Lewis worked very closely with Chief Darling, Police Chief Darling, and there was additional patrols that were put in place along the Cardinal Landing area. And those tended to be, at least again, based on the feedback that we've gotten from owners, those tended to be pretty effective towards the end of last summer. Another thing that was done is parking violations. And so the bike patrol people are able to give out parking violations. And so there was a more focused effort on issuing parking violations in the Cardinal Landing area. And if you can't park, it gets a little bit more difficult to pull out. And so that also seems to have been pretty effective. And I think there was additional signage put up. I have not been out there recently, so I don't know exactly what type of signage is there. But I think, there was additional signage put up, and hopefully that those continue to be in place right now. But I think those are kind of the kind of things that we have been doing. And again, based on the feedback that we've gotten from owners who live in that area, they said that it was pretty effective, and they had seen the problem significantly reduced last summer.
Okay, thank you. And Larry, are you familiar with this issue?
Oh yeah, I ride by there all the time on my bike, and I frankly I haven't noticed it the last couple of years being much of an issue, because if you're here in the wintertime and the water level goes down, you see that those pylons, old pylons, are along there, and you don't see them if you're in a kayak or something, but they're right below the surface. So you're bound to run into them if you try to pull off there. That's one of the deterrents. The other is there's clear signage there, so you can't miss it. But what happens is you get people that live around that area or rent around that area, and they'll go down there, and where it's eroding, they turn that into like a little beach. And they have picnics there, and play around in the water there. And I think that's really, the per square inch pressure of a footprint is a lot tougher than a kayak on the soil and the erosion. So I think that's really probably more of the problem. Sometimes people on inner tubes will try to get out there, but I haven't really seen it be a huge problem with boats.
Okay, thank you very much. All right. Gerhard, we're going to start with you in this round. How do you see the relationship between the resort and the SROA? Do you see it as improving, decreasing, something we can work on?
Okay, yeah, so the first thing I would say is that when we hired the new general manager, James Lewis, since we hired him, which was just over 2 years ago, there's been a significant improvement in that relationship. I believe there still remains additional opportunity in that area. And I think there is communication between the resort and SROA. There is good communication between the two. But I think that there's really a lot of synergism between what the resort does, what SROA does, and what the village does. We're extremely fortunate from my perspective that the resort has made significant investments in their infrastructure, making their resort amenities, bringing them up to date. That benefits all Sunriver owners, in my opinion. Likewise, SROA has made significant investments in our infrastructure, and that has made significant improvement in SROA. And I think, as Larry mentioned earlier here, the village has made significant investment in their infrastructure over the past 10 years, and that has dramatically improved the appearance of Sunriver. And so I believe there's a lot of synergy in all three organizations working together and really trying to make, keep Sunriver as up to date and as, as enjoyable of an experience as we possibly can, because it benefits all of us.
Okay, thank you. Larry?
Yeah, I frankly, I couldn't have said it better than Gerhard just did. I think the synergy of the three organizations makes this a really special place. I don't think you see that so much in other areas where they have maybe a homeowners association and a resort kind of warring against each other. The way that we've had, trade-offs in land and property and things like that have been, I think, really excellent for Sunriver. I think the board has done an excellent job in dealing with those issues.
Okay, thank you. And Linda?
I mean, both the guys, they've said just about everything there is to say there. There is a great synergy that's occurring, and I believe when things come up, there's communication all the way around to try to rectify problems. But SROA has done a lot of improvements that I think, again, helps the resort in what they're doing too. So I believe we just need to keep doing the same as what we have been doing.
Okay. So I've got a lot more questions. I'm sorry. It's great though, because we have concerned community members who are using this venue to ask you the questions. And I'm very impressed with our participants today. That was a really good fun one to end with. Okay. So do you have an opinion on indoor pickleball courts? Larry?
Well, I tell you what, I've always been a tennis player. I've played it literally my whole life and love tennis. But pickleball has become a burgeoning sport. It's one of those things I was talking about. We need to take into consideration the next generation stuff. Pickleball is not just for us old folks. It's for young people too. It's become a hugely popular sport. And, we have Sage Springs that has indoor tennis. If you want to use it, it's a separate entity. And I'm not sure that we as a homeowners association should really be involved in making indoor tennis or pickleball courts.
Okay, thank you. Linda?
Not a pickleball player. I've had knee replacement, and so it's just not on my list. But I know a lot of people enjoy pickleball, and I know the conversion of the tennis courts over at Fort Rock Park into pickleball courts. I know there's been a lot of unhappy tennis players, but there's an awful lot of really happy pickleball players. My only complaint there is there's no parking anymore because it's all full of pickleball players. Having an indoor court, I think that's something the board and the HOA members should consider and possibly do a full vote on, because it would be a tremendous expense to do that, whether it's pickleball and or tennis. That's something that should be addressed as a community if the need's really there. And would there be that many people that would use a pickleball court through the winter versus snow skiing or snowshoeing or other activities that we kind of change over to during winter time? So I don't know. I'd want to put it out to the owners.
Okay, thank you. Gerhard, indoor pickleball courts.
Yeah. So I'm not a pickleball player either. And so my first question is that, if you live in Sunriver, why would you want to play pickleball inside instead of playing outside? It's so nice outside, but I can understand in the wintertime, it's a little bit more challenging to play outside. I think, as Linda said, I mean, there's a tremendous expense associated with building a structure that could hold indoor pickleball and or tennis courts. And that's not out of the question, but it's something that the owners really would have to say, this is a priority for us, because this would be a special assessment. The owners would have to, like we did with Shark, we would have to have the owners sign up and says, yeah, I'm willing to pay X amount of dollars to have a structure built that has indoor pickleball and tennis courts. And so somebody wants to propose that, they can bring that to the board and say, hey, this is something I'd like to see happen. We probably have a task force take a look at it and say, is that something that the owners are very interested in, through surveys or other mechanisms? And then if it came back that the owners are interested in it, we certainly could entertain that. But like I said, given our financial situation today, that would have to be in a special assessment.
Okay, thank you. Let's see, I think you all answered that question. All right. Do you have any concerns in regards to a proliferation of misinformation in our community? And if so, how would you address it? And Linda, you get to start.
I'm not sure about what the misinformation is. I think that should be addressed, item by item. If someone has a concern, let's bring it to the board and address each item as it occurs. As an owner right now, I'm not aware of anything. So I'm not sure how to answer that really, other than whoever you are out there, please bring it to the board and let the board help work on that for you.
Great.
Got a dog tail here.
Thank you. Gerhard?
I would say, as Linda says, I'm not aware of any kind of misinformation going around, so it's kind of hard to address in that sense. I think, one of the things that we have, one of the advantages we have in trying to control misinformation is our communications department, headed up by Susan Berger. And not only does it do the scene, but they do the email blast. They have a presence on social media. And so we have the tools available and the people who know how to use those tools to make sure that the right message gets out to owners. And so if something came up where there was misinformation, I think we have a mechanism for actually addressing that and making sure that the right message does get out.
Thank you. Okay, Larry?
I really can't imagine that being an issue. I know politically on a national stage it's an issue, but I don't think it's a Sunriver issue. There are so many sources of information that you can get the straight scoop from. And if you've got a question and nobody else can answer it, text Gerhard. He'll get an answer for you.
Right, his email's available. All right, last question of the night. You ready? It's a fun one. Sunriver, get your Sunriver head on. Being on the board is like being on a sport team. Pick your sport and what position would you play? I'm going to give think time. And Gerhard, you're first.
It's not Gerhard.
I don't write the questions. It's our community.
All right. I think I'll pick it. So I would say the sport is. Let's see. Oh, I was going to do that, but I'll say the sport is like track. And the reason why I picked track is because there's a variety of different types of events that you have to participate in. There is a lot of individual effort that goes into your participation, but in the end, you either win or lose as a team.
What an answer.
One other quick point, it's also a marathon.
That's a warning to the other candidates.
No, apparently.
All right, Larry, pick a sport and your position.
Well, I'll pick baseball, and my position was always second base, so I'll choose that. Playing the infield, all positions are important, but playing an infield is sort of like being on a board. There are fewer of the team on that, and you get quicker action to the various bases and the shortstop and the pitcher. So yeah, that's what I'd be.
All right. And Linda?
Well, my sport was, I was a competitive water skier in my teens to almost late 20s until my knees finally gave out. And the 3 months of the year I wasn't water skiing, I'd snow ski. But my husband in the background is saying, you'd be the best cheerleader. So I'm really the one that would help encourage everyone else within the board, including myself, to keep going and come to resolutions on whatever we needed. So I guess I'll take the cheerleader role.
All right. Well, I thank all of you for your participation today. We have one other question that is not something you need to answer. And that is, what other venues might we have to meet the candidates, and specifically David, who we're missing today? And at this point, I don't really know what other opportunities there are. I would say check the Sunriver Scene and the Chamber of Commerce newsletter. His picture's in this month's Sunriver Scene, so if you see him on the bike path, stop and ask him. This is a great opportunity, though, to meet the candidates, and we want to thank each of you for your time and commitment to our community. So thank you, everybody, for being here today. And we did record this session. You can go back and watch it on YouTube. It's Sunriver U Candidates Forum. It takes about 2 days for it to post. Feel free to pass that on to your neighbors and friends and other Sunriver owners, because we want the most informed voters that we can have. Thank you very much, everybody. Have a great evening. It's beautiful.
Thank you.
Yeah, thank you, Gwen, and thank Sunriver U.
Yeah,
Thank you. Good night.
right.